Ladies and gentlemen, gather round for one of the strangest and most unfortunate stories from medieval Europe. A tale of royalty, politics, and yes, a latrine. Today, we're diving into the latrine disaster of 1184. An event so bizarre and so tragically ironic that it feels like it was pulled straight from the pages of a dark comedy. Our story begins in the year 1184. In Erfurt, a thriving medieval city in what is now modern-day Germany. At the time, the Holy Roman Empire was a fragmented collection of territories ruled by princes, bishops, and various noble families, all loosely held together under the emperor's authority. Tensions were high between two powerful noble houses, the Ludovingians and the Archbishopric of Mainz. Their feud had reached a boiling point. Enter King Henry VI, the son of Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, at just 19 years old. Henry was already acting as king of the Romans and regent of the empire in his father's absence. To settle the dispute and assert imperial authority, Henry called a Hoftag, a formal imperial court session in the city of Erfurt. Nobles and churchmen from all over central Germany attended, gathering in the Petersburg citadel, a hilltop fortress with a grand assembly hall. It was supposed to be a moment of diplomacy, unity, and perhaps even peace. But then disaster struck. Now, let's talk about the building itself. The assembly hall, part of the episcopal palace, was constructed above a medieval latrine, essentially a large cesspit. Over the years, it had collected, well, everything you might expect from a heavily used toilet under a stone floor. Human waste, sewage, and the runoff of daily castle life. And on that fateful day, the weight of dozens of armored nobles, knights, and churchmen proved to be too much for the floor to bear. Without warning, the wooden floor collapsed, sending a significant number of those present, some accounts say dozens, plunging into the cesspit below. The structure failed catastrophically, and many fell several meters straight into the foul, toxic mire of human waste. Some were injured in the fall, others drowned, in sewage. Historical accounts differ slightly, as they often do, but contemporary sources, like the Chronicler Burchard of Erzburg, recorded that around 60 nobles died in the collapse, though modern historians debate the exact number. Miraculously, King Henry VI survived. He was reportedly seated on a stone platform at one end of the room, which didn't give way with the rest of the floor. He was pulled to safety, presumably shaken, but unscathed. Those less fortunate met a most undignified end. Some were crushed, some were suffocated by the gases and waste, and others, in the scramble to escape, were trampled or unable to climb back out. It's hard to overstate how shocking this was at the time. Nobles, bishops, men of status and influence swallowed by, the very symbol of filth and human vulnerability. It was more than a tragedy, it was an embarrassment for the imperial court. And you can imagine the rumors and jokes that must have spread, even in an age without Twitter. But beyond the absurdity, the disaster had political consequences. The already tense relationship between the empire's ruling houses took another hit. The attempt at diplomacy was not only a failure, it ended in literal disgrace. Surviving records don't tell us much about how the site was cleaned up, but you can bet there were some serious renovations, and maybe a new respect for architectural integrity. So what do we make of the latrine disaster of 1184? On one hand, it's a horrifying accident, a convergence of bad luck, poor engineering, and too many armored men in one place. On the other hand, it serves as a strange metaphor for the fragility of power in the medieval world. Even the mightiest can fall, and sometimes, quite literally, into the muck. So next time you complain about a bad day at work, just be glad you didn't fall through the floor into a medieval latrine. This has been your Fireside Medieval Mishap. Thanks for listening. And remember, watch where you step.